So the time has come. We're going to be making the sunroof, which has been requested by a lot of you folks. And if I'm not just going to show you how to make it, I've made the plans, which you can buy for a wee little bit of money and make yourself. And all the proceeds will be going towards my coffee addiction in the morning. So let's make this roof with a low budget and minimal tools. Come on, let's go get some wood. What have we got here? Hello.
Pitch this, right? I'll hammer the nail and then we put it in slow mo and everything. Come on.
So with this project, we're obviously using pallet wood. We're going to be using an MDF board and some screws and some stain, and that's pretty much all the materials we'll be using. Because you got to think about the planet and how you can save it. None of this chopping down trees or whatever. And let's face it, wood is pretty expensive these days. So the stencil is pretty straightforward. There's only 4 pages that you need to join together, and you basically just need to cut one of the edges off, tape it, and then join it to the other piece. Just making sure that you join the squares in the corners to make it straight. And then we're just cutting the whole thing out. And you can just roughly cut it because we'll be gluing it straight onto a piece of wood so that we can follow the lines when we cut it. And with the circular piece, you'll need another piece of paper that's wider than A4 because the circle is bigger than an A4 sheet. So you'll need an A3 sheet maybe. And then we'll be folding a piece of paper in half, putting the stencil on, and then chopping around it so it creates a full circle. And there's only 5 pieces of the stencil, so it's very straightforward, very simple. And you can use this stencil for pretty much anything. You don't just have to make a roof, you can make a table, you can make the floor, you can make a countertop. Just be creative. And with the glue, it's better to do more because you don't want the paper pulling up and ripping and losing your line potentially. So more glue is better. It will just keep the paper on the wood. Right, you just explain this piece, mate, alright? So that's the glue dried on all the pieces. The aim of the game now is to jigsaw out the line, cutting as close as you can. So you heard the little lad. The aim of the game is to cut the pieces out as close as you can to the line, and it's better to cut a bit further away from the line just so that you can sand it back rather than cutting too much in because you can't add any more wood back in. And with the very tips of these pieces, just be a bit more careful because they are prone to just snap. So cutting a bit further out and sanding them back is the best way to do them. And I'm just using a jigsaw and a circ saw for these. So obviously the circ saw for the straight pieces and the jigsaw for the wibbly wobbly wibblies. And once I cut out the 5 stenciled pieces, I then trace them onto more wood because you need 4 of each of the stencils. Apart from the circle that will be the center of the sun, there's only 1 of them. And then I just blasted all the pieces with a lovely belt sand. So that's all the pieces sanded up. Now you can leave them like this, or you can just put a little round edge on each of the pieces. You can use the sander, or you can use a hand file, but I'm going to cheat. I'm going to use the router. I used a round over piece on the router, and I routed all of the sides because they'll all be joining together, and I wanted it to look pretty rounded, I guess. And make sure you're very careful with the router because it will chew your finger off. I know a lot of these pieces are pretty small and delicate and you do have to get pretty near, but just be very, very careful. So here's a funny thing. After digging around, found the original sun. There is actually a set of plates. So I brought it up to the piece of wood that I just cut out, and would you look at that. That is the same size. So for sentimental value, I might just be using this plate to match the other sunroof somewhere in the world. Dun, 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 dun. So now all the pieces are cut, sanding and looking it's time to mount them onto a board. So we're gonna have to hold it up to the roof, work out our center point, and then work out how far on each side you're gonna, yeah, let me just show you. Now if you're building it for your van, every roof size is gonna be different, so your measurements are gonna be different to mine. Or if you've got a smaller van, you might find a board which can fit the roof so you won't have to do the excess. So I've just measured the distance to the end of the walls, just done that in each corner, bang, 305 that way, 250 that way, so when I build my son on the roof, I know how much further I've got to build it from the board. So now it's time for the very, very hard bit, the outside line things that come from the sun. So because we've stenciled this out and we know that it's 260 extra going this way into the wall, we can put the tape measure there. We can grab a piece of wood, which is going to be the piece. We can line it up down there. And then number 13 and number 13 goes there. And then we can draw around. And we've got our center point. So it's going to be like this. Confusing. I know. Let's show you. So that is our piece that we're going to have to cut out. And guess what? We're going to have to do it the whole way around. So let's try and simplify this. We have the center point of the sun, and we'll be drawing two lines, one on each side of the piece of wood to make a triangle, and then putting the stenciled piece on top, drawing around it, cutting it out, and we would have a triangular piece going towards the center with the stenciled piece cut out. Maybe that makes more sense. Maybe I'm terrible at explaining things. Who knows? Maybe you'll even just see, and maybe it'll make sense. How many more maybes can you say? One more, maybe?
As you can see now, the most important jobs are getting done. Where's Matt, you say? Yeah, not in the picture. Yep. See that? Beautiful piece of art. I normally do the staining because Matt's a little bit of a globster himself. What's a globster, you say? Couldn't tell you. Ask Matt. Every palette tells a story. What's wrong with your hand?
Which hand? The left one or the left one?
I remember last time we went to skip shooting, so I'll just try your own car.
Keep going. So that's a quarter of the sunroof done. Boom. And that's 18 pieces of the outside lines. And we got to times that by 4, which is 72. How's your alphabet going? So it's all fun and games working by yourself most of the time. But sometimes it gets a little bit lonely. And sometimes you need an extra pair of hands. So here's a sneaky little tip for you guys. Get yourself a girlfriend who's always on time, who's keen to learn new skills, and that respects all the equipment on the work site. I'm still trying to find one myself. But anyway, I left excess on the triangular pieces just so that I could cut them down in a straight line. So I used a straight piece of wood, clamped it down on both sides, and then ran the circ saw all the way to the end to cut a nice straight line. And I did that all the way around, and I have a cupboard that I need to cut out, which is here. We then brought the base through the back doors, trying not to knock anything, and I used 50mm metal screws screwing into the beams of the roof just to make sure that it's going nowhere. Nothing would be worse than a roof falling on your head. But, so that is the sunroof in. It is done. It is finished. And guess what? We added some lights. What a wicked one. Thanks for watching the video, guys. If you liked the video, give it a subscribe, give it a like, or give it a dislike, and give it a nasty comment. Who knows? Who cares? I don't know. We'll see ya in the next video.